Goedemorgen allemaal.
Goedemorgen.
Lekker geslapen?
Nee.
Mooi. Nederlands? Engels?
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
No.
We are very inclusive.
No. Tradition is 15 minutes in the talk, we switch to English.
No.
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
Good morning, y'all.
Y'all.
Now, without further ado, I would like to introduce to you Mischa, and he will talk about the OpenBSD Hypervisor. Please come in and enjoy his talk.
Welcome to the Church of OpenBSD. This is going to be a Siemens sermon. No. I'm going to talk about the OpenBSD Hypervisor. A little bit about myself. I started working at Access for All a long time ago. Walter was there a little bit earlier, I think. And since '98, I've been working for vendors, networking, security vendors, all these kind of things. And also around that time, I started with FreeBSD. I think I was one of the ones that introduced FreeBSD to Access for All. And also after that, I started co-location, primarily for my own hardware. I rented a rack with 3 friends, I thought, and then one of my friends said, no, I'm not going to do it. And I was the main contractor, and I thought, okay, shit. Now I have to get other hardware in there. And that exploded a little bit into 8 racks or 10 racks at one point. Still hosted at Access for All, so I'm looking for a new home when it's becoming KPN. But anyway, what about you? Who is using OpenBSD? Ooh. Any other BSDs? FreeBSD? Dare I say NetBSD? Oh. All right. Who's using the OpenBSD Hypervisor? All right. Nice. Who has a VM at OpenBSD Amsterdam? Oh, I don't know. I know you. All right, cool. So it is like a team customer meeting. All right. So I'm going to talk to you about how it all began, and I'm going through the setup. You can also read about the setup on my website. I've got everything documented. Some things that other people have already started using, so that's quite cool. But how it all began was I started using jails on FreeBSD, Kubernetes, and Docker. That's now to segment things out. And I've always been looking for virtualization or easy virtualization. Then came along Beehive on FreeBSD, which is not simple. It works. But then some guys on the OpenBSD community thought, okay, we're not going to import Beehive. We're going to build our own from scratch. And that became VMM VMD. And as a start, I looked at that, and it was getting there. I think after 2 years, it became a little bit stable. So I thought, okay, let's do this, because I have some spare rack space, some hardware, more importantly, some spare IP space, IPv4. And I always wanted to have like a domain with something BSD in there. So I saw that openbsd.amsterdam was free. I registered, no idea what to do with it. But I also wanted to have a way to give back to the community and to actually take this hypervisor and see how far we could take this. So that was pretty much the start of it. So where is it? As you might assume, it's in Amsterdam. It's in a KPN data center, DC2, at the Barbara Strozzi-laan, if people know it. It was called something different, which I forgot now. And primarily the hardware that I'm using is Dell R610s, Foundry switches, if people still know Foundry. Cool. And also, and that's connected to a Foundry MLX, and I'm doing BGP to Access for All, so I can decide where the traffic goes, and if part of Access for All collapses, then I'll go through the other gateway. So the whole thing actually started on Twitter, where I just started playing around. I said to some people, hey, I have a machine that I'm playing with, who wants a VM? So I'm one of the first, dare I say, victims, I guess? Happy customer, okay, cool. On server 1, so VM number 6 was there, and I thought, oh, this is pretty cool. So I did a little poll on Twitter what people were willing to pay for a VM with these specs. So 512 of meg, 50 gig of RAM, V4 and V6. Because there's a lot of companies out there that do this en masse, and they charge like €2 or €6 or €10 or whatever. So I thought the sweet spot was around €5 a month. So I thought, okay, I have some other spare hardware. Let's get going. So this was the first proper machine online, and the reason why I say proper, the first machine was like 8 gig, CPU, a lot. So as soon as I started adding more VMs, it would reboot because it couldn't really deal with the memory. So this machine had a little bit more memory, more disk space, and this is still running 45 VMs, if I'm correct. And of course, the whole idea was that as soon as you have a VM, part of the money that I charge, I donate to the OpenBSD community. So the first donation that I've done was in, I can't read it, in July, I think, yeah, end of July, to the OpenBSD Foundation. This was for €400, and so that pretty much means 40 VMs. So I donate €10 for every VM, and €15 for every renewal. And this actually took a while to deploy. So everything was done by hand. Also, one of the machines crashed, so I had to redo everything by hand, which was not fun. There were no tools around it to make it easier. I developed them gradually over time, which you'll see. But yeah. So now, some statistics. The last month, I donated €395. In total, 5,000 plus. And in 2018, I donated €1,850 in 6 months, actually. 2019, 3,500. And there's 10 active hosts at the moment, so 10 servers. And what I've done is basically for the money that I made of all the VMs on a certain server, I bought a new server and started over again. And I actually have to start investing in server number 11. And there's currently 334 VMs active, which is mind-boggling still. I don't know why people do that. Even who's running production on OpenBSD Amsterdam? Good. Thank you. But there are actually people running production, which is a little bit scary. Yeah. So, what do you get? You get a opinionated VM. Now, this has changed a little bit over time. Initially, it was more like, this is the install that you get, these are the packages that you get. But now there's some changes in the way that OpenBSD upgrades, and it doesn't make sense anymore to not install certain things. So it's going to be more vanilla OpenBSD, but anyway, still my opinion. And you get, by default, 512 meg of RAM. You can get more if you want, 1 gig. You get 50 gig of disk space. You can also get more. You get 1 IPv4. You can get more. Not a lot of people have done that. And you also get a IPv6 range. And the idea is that the host, not for all, is the gateway for all the VMs. So how is this set up? Everything that we, 99% today, that we use is in base. So OpenBSD has a very complete base operating system. You can run a router, you can do BGP, web servers, load balancers, without installing anything. So it's quite cool, actually, that most of the things that we can do and use to deploy is within base. Perl is in base. Some of the tooling that the OpenBSD guys wrote are actually done in Perl. So I thought, I know Perl. So I started actually doing some deploy scripts in Perl. And of course, the VMD daemon, DHCP, auto install, for people that know it, it's a way to actually automatically go through the installation process. There's a package called site.tgz which you can have your own packages or configuration that you can automatically take. I'm using the HTTPD from OpenBSD, and then of course VI. Everything's done in VI. So what the Perl script does is it will create all the configuration files that are needed. It will create a user. It will put the user in the doas config. So for people that don't know OpenBSD, doas is the version of sudo on OpenBSD. Because like everything else, the guys from OpenBSD go, okay, this sucks. It's way too complicated, way too many attack surfaces. We will write our own, which is also what doas is. And it also creates the image. So the vm.conf looks a little bit like this. So I have a block of configuration. No, mine doesn't show up. Where I specify the VM name, who the owner is, where the disk is located, how much memory, how much disk space, and I assign a static MAC address to a VM, which I then use in the DHCP config to actually tie the IP address together. So you can type in your IP address manually. If I have to move your VM, it's a little bit annoying for me, because then I cannot really reassign your IP address back if something is changing or whatever, or gateway. And also the file name auto install basically tells OpenBSD to look for PXE boot and then an installer file to kick in the automatic process. One thing you can also do is say auto upgrade. So if you want to upgrade from there on to other releases, you can also do that in automatic fashion. So what the auto install looks like, it's primarily IP address, username, password, so that I can provision the VM. I also put the SSH key in there, so that you don't need to have a password in order to connect. And also the install file. So as you can see here below, set name. I remove all the X things, and then I add the site for the local configuration. Now, if people are familiar with OpenBSD, there's now a command called sysupgrade, which basically upgrades the whole system with one command, and it assumes that everything will be installed. So removing certain sets these days doesn't really make a lot of sense anymore.